have Mr. Salvatore join in once Mr. Chandler sees that he's here. I'd like to call the meeting in order for the Cumberland School Committee Thursday, September 8th, 2020 at 7:05 PM. In accordance with Governor Ramondo's Executive Order 20-75 dated September 9, 2020, the Cumberland School Committee intends to conduct this meeting remotely. The public can participate in this meeting remotely, but not in person, by calling area code 646-558-8656. The webinar ID is 971-8314-3394, or join us on the Zoom website the full URL address is at the Cumberland School Department District website, and it's in the events calendar. And the passcode is 637477. So the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. All right. We have approval of the agenda, compliance with the governor's executive order 20-75 dated September 9, 2020. Discussion, vote whether there is public access to the meeting through adequate alternate means. I see members from the public are here in the meeting that are not school committee members. So I would say there's adequate, access to the meeting. So I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Waters, seconded by who? Mr. Fiorello. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. There is Mr. Salvatore. Thank you. Next is we have the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on 9/24/2020. Approval of the minutes from the executive session 9/24/2020. The enrollment report from October 1st, 2020. The school police report from September 1st, 2020. School bus inspection reports from 10/1/2020. Residency truancy report from 10/1/2020. We have the handbooks for the schools in the folder. And we have personnel actions that the superintendent has taken, which is the retirement of Karen Egan, building secretary at Ashton School after 26 years of service. An unpaid leave of absence for the remainder of the 2020-21 school year, beginning November 2nd, 2020. Sylvia Stipich, EL teacher at McCourt. The appointment effective 10/5/2020 of Jameson Mora, grade 1 at Garvin. It's a 1-year only position, step 3 at 20% copay. The appointment effective 10/13/2020 of Richard Fiorillo. I'm sorry, I butchered that one. A custodian, nights at Ashton with an 18% copay. And we have a coach effective October 1st, 2020. Nancy Gendro, coach at junior varsity field hockey. Those superintendent appointments under personnel actions. So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion
Like
approved.
Motion
Yeah,
by Mr. Collins, second by Mrs. Waters.
I'll second with discussion.
Go right ahead, Mrs. Waters.
I had a question around the bus report. So on several of the bus reports, it indicates that there's rot in the bus. What exactly are we approving when we're approving these bus inspection reports? And who's responsible for making sure the buses are safe for students?
Well, I believe, Mrs. Waters, the reports come from the registry.
Yeah, that's what,
And they're out inspecting the buses, and we, have been getting copies sent to the school district for a few years now. The Registry of Motor Vehicles deals with all the bus companies in regards to repairs that have to be made before the bus can be made bus worthy, the road. So it's all going through them, but we can follow up and make sure that these, deficiencies in the school buses are being followed up on and the repairs are being made. But they're the responsible people that would inspect the buses throughout the state.
okay, thank you.
Okay. So we had a motion and a second for discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Thank you. Next is report out of the executive session meeting. On October 8th, 2020, there were no votes taken tonight during the executive session. I need a motion to seal the minutes, please.
Motion to seal.
Motion by
Second.
Mrs. Bernardo, seconded by Mr. Salvatore. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 7-0.
Aye.
Next is the superintendent's report. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to take item C, the high school safety project, and move that to the end. It'll only take, I believe, just a few minutes to get there, but Holly Demers from Colliers is here to share some information with you about the work safety project that's being done at the high school.
And we can take that out of order. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know that, as you all know, today was the first day where we had the transition grades, kindergarten, grade 6 and 9 come to school. So half of the kindergartners, half of the 6th graders, and half of the 9th graders were in attendance today. The other half will have their first day tomorrow. I was able to connect with all of the principals, and by all accounts, they said it was a great day. The students were happy, the staff was happy, and it went really well. We received no major concerns regarding transportation. I think the only snafu that we had to deal with, and I want to acknowledge this publicly and accept responsibility. There were some rooms in the high school that did not have disinfectant. I want to let everyone know that actually, even as we speak, our facilities manager, Will DeJesus, is ensuring that there is a disinfectant in every single one of our classrooms. So other than that, all of the principals said that today was a really good day. And we're hoping that the same thing will happen tomorrow. As you all know, we've been talking about this issue over the last several weeks, if not months. The ventilation work continues. And I think it's important for everyone to know that progress has been made. The most important target that we are striving for as part of the guidelines that have been provided to all schools in the state is to get those 4 to 6 air exchanges per hour in every single space that we have in the district. And I can tell you that based on the significant amount of work that has been taking place in all of our buildings, on all of our univents, and these are the units in every space, physical space in the district that brings fresh air in and pushes air out through the exhaust. So we've been able to improve the air exchanges in several of the classrooms. And as you all know, members of the school committee, you all approved the purchase of 200 HEPA filtration units, and we may need some more. We'll definitely keep you informed, and if we need to get a few more, then certainly we will let you know that. But progress is being made, and I've had a chance to talk to many of my colleagues, and I hope, as difficult as this has been, I know that the school committee and the school department did the right thing by supporting the ventilation study. And as a result, a lot of work has been done. And when students and staff report to school, everyone will know that they are going to be teaching and learning in places that are safe. So, like I said, that work continues. I shared I got to believe that people are tired of getting relentless emails on a variety of issues from my office, and I decided yesterday to do a video just to let the staff know where we were with that project. So we're getting close to completion. So that is the ventilation study. There are flu vaccination clinics scheduled for October 13th, October 26th, and November 18th. There was one yesterday for staff. In fact, I got my vaccination yesterday. And Cumberland has always had a really strong turnout for these vaccination clinics. And I think we've all heard that a flu vaccination is even more important this season than in seasons past. So I would encourage all families to take advantage of this opportunity. And like I said, I've always been really impressed with the number of community members that take advantage of this opportunity for free. So that is the flu vaccination clinic. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you was it's connected with the start of school, and that is an issue that we're having, Mr. Chairman and members of the school committee, and I think it's important for the community to hear this as well. As you all know, we asked families this summer to make a decision as to whether they wanted to have their children continue with distance learning or participate in the hybrid model that would allow them to come to school a couple days a week. We asked families who made the decision to begin the school year with distance learning to make that decision until January. And the reason that I want to bring this up is because we have had a number of families who have requested to change their minds. And I just want people to know that we are not in a position at this point to allow that to continue because there are lots of reasons. One is it provides a real challenge from a staffing standpoint. And I would say that is the single biggest issue. But when you have to make adjustments as far as staffing is concerned, that does create a financial issue because we have to provide more support in the classroom if there are more students than are contractually required. It also impacts transportation. So I just want the committee and the public to know that we are at a point where we can no longer accommodate a change. At this point, we will create a waiting list for anyone that is reconsidering. But I just want the committee and the public to know that I think it's important for everybody that we want everybody back. We want the schools to be the way that they always have been. But under the circumstances, this presents a tremendous challenge for us from a variety of reasons. And we just want everyone to hang in there. And those families that made the commitment to do distance learning until January, we ask that you stay with that commitment and vice versa. Those folks that committed to virtual learning where their children will be in school at least 2 days a week. We're asking that you make that commitment to virtual learning. And again, if anybody, is thinking about making a change, we will create a waiting list for any possible openings because of someone leaving the district or deciding to do homeschooling or that sort of thing. So I just wanted to make folks aware that, things are not always as simple as they may seem. And I just wanted everyone to know that this has presented a challenge, and we're just asking them to stick to the commitment that they made initially. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the thing that I would like to do now is have Holly Demers, our owner's project manager rep from Colliers, and I would ask that she share with you the work that's being done at the high school at this time. And coincidentally, and I also think it's important for everyone to know that this work was supposed to start in the summer. And to be honest, if it had started when we had hoped it would start, then it would have been almost done or done by now. But because of the coronavirus, because of COVID-19, that project has been delayed as well. So unfortunately, at the same time we're bringing students in, we have this this project that is starting at the same exact time. But the good news is that it's only going to take a couple months to get this done, and it is a safety improvement project. So it's going to make the high school more secure. That's why the school committee and the mayor and the town council supported this project to begin with. So with that, I will turn it over to Holly Demers, our owner's project manager from Colliers. Holly, are you out there?
I am, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I also have John Copeless, who's on my team with Colliers on as well. But I believe you have a copy of the construction schedule in front of you, right? Yes, okay. If you look at it, it's very detailed, but the reality is the actual site work will take the 2 months. So they started at the front of the high school already. They started 2 days ago with the excavation. They will follow this schedule fairly well. Hopefully we won't have winter conditions, and we'll deal with that if we do. But the anticipated time for the front of the school to be under construction is 2 months. But if you go to the second page, it references other pieces of the construction. And part of the issue is the procurement of some of these items, the interior doors, the bulletproof glass, and certain things. There's an incredibly long lead time. Typically there's a lead time, but with COVID, all of these have been pushed out even more. So the goal is to have the front of the school take a couple of months for all of the site work. So the disruption from the exterior will be settled down. The concrete will be poured, which is the biggest part of the project. And then the interior work will be done as we go, as the procurement and all of the materials come in. So you'll see, obviously the landscaping is next April, which makes sense considering we're starting in October. But even the gates, the gates, it's a 92-day wait just to get them in. And everything has been ordered that needed to be ordered, but now it's a waiting game. And of course, we'll be aggressive with the GC and chasing it to see if we can shorten those times. But this is what he's projecting based on the manufacturers. So it did start when we had hoped. Everything has been ordered. I believe, we'll be on site regularly to make sure everything's going according to plan. We speak to the general contractor daily. And John he also took the site plan and gave it a little bit more pop so you could see what it is going to look like versus just a flat site plan. So if you have any questions regarding, what's actually happening, we'll be happy to go through that with you.
Any members? Go ahead, Mrs. Waters.
I do want to comment on the site plan. It, in previous documents, I think I had a difficult time envisioning what it was going to look like, but this helps a lot. So thank you for that. Just a question on the gate, or the two gates that are going in. It says ornamental power slide heavy duty fence gate. I'm assuming this is like a security feature and is not just ornamental, right?
No, yes, this is a 6
Okay.
foot, John, 6 foot, 8 foot. We just talked about this earlier.
It's 6
foot.
It's
It's 6
6
foot, and even,
6 foot
we
high.
walked the site and just to try to understand how they open to make sure they're safe, because they're big gates. And there will be a fence when the gate moves, it will go up against a fence. So there won't be any, it won't be dangerous for anyone walking by or anything. So
Yeah.
we walked the site to make sure that based on, where the parking is. And as far as the parking goes, I believe when all is said and done, there's a loss of about 4 or 5 spots. That's all. So the flow will be great. And, when it's done with the colored concrete in the patio, I believe it'll make a huge difference and be very welcoming. But unfortunately, the lead time on some of these items is just ridiculous. And it's the world we're in, I suppose. So.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Murs, for being here. I just have a quick question. I pardon my ignorance to, concrete pours, but it looks like you've scheduled the latter half of November, concrete pours, asphalt, etc. Is there any chance with inclement weather that would delay? And if so, how long would it delay? Like if we get an ice or snowstorm of some degree, which we obviously potentially could. I hope we don't, but would that delay the project? And if so, how long?
It would depend on what type of storm. We have discussed with the GC winter conditions, because it's also temperature driven. So we're aware that if it goes under a certain temperature at night, regardless of the day temperature, that certain precautions have to be done, covering the concrete and et cetera. So it's not only just snow, it could be temperatures. We can just cross our fingers and hope that we have what we've had in the past few years in a relatively mild, because it is through November, which is not too bad based on history. But again, we're anticipating, if the worst case scenario is we have temperature problems, then there's winter conditions will be in place. And we've discussed it with their site worker as well as the GC, recognizing that might be, and we'll check on that. I mean, fortunately now you can tell a week out what you can expect for temperatures, so they're ready. John, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I was just going to say it is something that is taken, precautions can be taken to address, potential, preparation work, if you will. And then also, if need be, some, additives can be added to the concrete to address, temperature issues as well. But it's really, just trying to, anticipate Mother Nature and hopefully, we'll have the favorable weather, as Holly said, that we've had the last couple of years. At least up to December. So, the intent is that we will not need to worry about the, winter conditions, but, time will tell, but we're prepared to address that if we need to.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions in regards to the security project at the high school? All right, Mr. Mitchell, I don't hear anyone asking to raise their hand. So the project has started the other day?
Yes, Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yesterday.
Yesterday, yes.
Yesterday.
Okay. Well,
I
thank you.
do have one question,
ahead.
and I am just having a hard time visualizing where students will be able to enter the building. So for the students, so Mr. Mitchell, maybe this is for you. For students that are driving themselves to the high school and parking at Tucker Field and walking over, typically they would go into, that front entrance. Is that still open for them to go into, or do they need to go into a different entrance?
There are, they cannot go in the front entrance. That is all blocked off. I think the high school administration, I know Mr. Carpenter, one of the deans, very active in planning all of this. So they are conveying to students where they can enter the building. So yeah, and interestingly enough, that's a good question, Ms. Waters. They, when students have to go to the wellness center, they actually, I was out there with Mr. Costa today. Students will be exiting the side of the building closest to the central office, the trans building, and they'll walk down that side and enter the wellness center through, the side closest to Mendon Road.
Okay, thanks. So I would guess that's where students would enter the building then, would be on that trans building side.
Yes, and there will be opportunities to access the building from the back of the building as well.
Right, like a typical drop off. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, hearing none. Mr. Mitchell, thank you. Mrs. Demers and John, thank you as well for the quick presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Holly and John.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, next is report of standing committees, payment of bills.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I guess I missed the flow of the of Mr. Mitchell's presentation. I had some questions about the school reopening, but we kind of went off to just to get Collier's out of the way. Can I go back now and just ask a couple questions?
Sure, let's go back. Sure.
All right, I had a question about the ventilation. One of the things, and I first of all, I want to say it's incredible that the amount of work we've been able to get in a short amount of time, and I think that's a testament to just organizational leadership. But I did have one question. One of the issues that came up when we were looking at the E&E study had to do with quarantine stations if a student tests positive. So in a scenario where a kid, fails to fill out the attestation form or lies on it, just worst case scenario, and a kid has symptoms, we have to quarantine them. Now, I was just taking a peek at the E&E study, and it says they have to have a 100% airflow exchange in those rooms. Dedicated 100% outside air ventilation and dedicated exhaust. And then we had a question when we were looking at the ventilation. What happens if 5 kids have symptoms suddenly? First of all, do we have properly ventilated quarantine stations at each school? That would be my first question.
Okay, all right. So I think that's probably going to be the easiest question for me to answer. We actually had a meeting, as you may recall, after the Ed Operations Center groups did the walkthroughs of all of our buildings. There were some concerns with ventilation in the isolation rooms. And we actually, in order to address those issues, we actually had a meeting with representatives of Department of Health, RIDE. Our staff was represented. Mike Chandler, Alex was present. I think Katie may have been involved. Duncanson may have been involved as well. Anyway, to make a long story short, we actually went through each of our facilities, not only the 4 that they initially identified as a concern, but we actually had a conversation about the isolation room in all 8, and we provided that group with information about what we were doing. And I can tell you that they approved all of the isolation rooms. So as it stands right now, and we also, for added protection, if you will, I know that Will DeJesus, our facilities manager, has put some HEPA filters in those locations as well. I'm going to follow up with him again tomorrow. But we, I think the big concern, and I know that Katie Duncanson is on the call, and she has been actively involved in this. I don't want to put her on the spot, but one of our concerns is, what you mentioned about, what do we do if multiple students, start to have symptoms? How are we going to respond to that? We can put 1 or 2 in a room, but what if there are 3 or 4? I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure right now, and there may be an answer to that, but I don't know what it is right off the bat. Mrs. Duncanson, do you know? Not to put you on the spot, do you?
So there's some pretty strict rules about if symptoms start developing during the day and putting them in, the parent needs to pick up the child within 1 hour.
Right.
So that will help. Now, I'm not sure how effective us telling them that they need to be there within an hour will be, but that is the intent. I think most schools have backups to their isolation rooms that are there. So they're not being used every day, but if they were to need it, then it would become effective. So that is in place. We do have enhanced PPE for those areas as well for staff supervising. They do have to be supervised by an adult, so there's no risk of infection there. So that is, I know that the principals do have a backup room that they have identified in the case of multiple. So right now, the typical one can house about 2 to 3 students with 6-foot social distancing with masks on and some sort of barrier between the students. And beyond that, there is a backup for, so once it starts to fill up, they would clear out the other room and then utilize that.
I just have a follow-up question too. Actually, a couple. Nurses. We've been talking a lot about last meeting about staff, understaffing, substitutes, and the potential to be spread thin. Is there any? Do you anticipate any potential nurses? Will we have to bring in extra nurses? I mean, nursing's a tough profession, especially now. Dealing with symptoms and isolation, in addition to the other things, whatever ailments students may have. Is it enough for 1 school nurse or just a couple school nurses? Do you think we somewhere down the road may need more nurses or nursing assistants or LPNs or anything?
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and then I know that this is an issue you've been concerned about.
So nurses have been deemed essential workers according to the Department of Health. So they have a little looser regulations regarding their quarantine, which is surprising to me, but that is the rules that they're under. I am concerned about that nurses are going to get sick. It's just going to happen just not because of COVID. They're going to get sick with normal things unrelated to COVID. So in the absence of a nurse, we are going to be bringing in temporary RNs through our agency to fill those positions. Beyond that, I can tell you from a HR perspective, I'm inputting any quote unquote probable case that is in the employee section, and it takes a good part of my day to research and nail down who is and who is not a probable case. It's going to be clerical wise. It's a pretty big load to deal with the Department of Health requirements of us at this point. I'm doing it from the employee standpoint, but so I have about 400, probably about over 500 adults that I'm working with. So that's about as typical. That's a big school or a bigger school, not as big as a high school, but not as small as some of our elementary. So it takes, a couple hours of my day that I'm not dealing with individual people. I'm researching whether or not they're a probable case and whether or not they need to be reported. So
I'm sorry, and I have one more question about the attestation form. I filled it out this morning. Took me forever to find it on Aspen, but I found it. What's the procedure if somebody doesn't fill it out, or they're maybe not forthcoming? You know, oh, I don't have. They're just checking the boxes, and the kid clearly has a fever when they get off the bus. And what's the procedure if a kid walks in the building and has not filled out the form?
Well, we have been talking about that in our leadership team meetings, and I know that part of that responsibility does fall on the nurse, but we also have a Mike Chandler has created a program that allows a list of students who have not completed, or the parents who've not completed the attestation form, to identify those students, and they can be checked. We're hoping that we can maybe check them at the beginning of the day. That's the way it's gone up to this point. But I can tell you that even though we only, up until today, we've only had, as you know, a few students in, and I know that my colleagues are struggling with this too, is not everyone is conscientious about or remembers, in fairness, because I do mine every day, but I sometimes don't remember to do it until I have it set up so that I do it first thing in the morning. But sometimes I forget, but I've done it every single day, but it's not first thing in the morning. So, I think we need to have in place a process to identify those students whose attestation forms have not been submitted, and we need to check to make sure that those students are not having any symptoms. So I don't know that we have that 100%, a process for that yet, but that is definitely something that we're going to have to pay attention to, because, as you know, not only do we need to know that information, but in the event that someone starts to exhibit symptoms, show symptoms, then contact tracing and all of that comes into play. So, it is an added responsibility for all of us, but it really is important information. So that's why I keep stressing it in my weekly communication.
I just think that, looking around, I mean, the NFL, Washington, D.C., if you slip up on any sort of protocol, even if you adhere to the protocol perfectly, it can have rippling effects. And we're so close to open. We've begun school, and there's a lot of excited kids out there. I just hope that we have, we have the procedures in place, it sounds like, for the most part, but
Yes.
As long as everybody has to adhere to them, because all it takes is one or two, and it can have rippling effects. So and it just, as for you mentioned disinfectant at the high school, that also includes hand sanitizer, because I heard from a couple teachers today that it was there wasn't enough hand sanitizer, and I think at community some of the hand sanitizer was expired. But that has been, I don't know if there's any merit to that, but.
Well, I didn't hear about community, but however, we actually have 200 gallons of hand sanitizer coming in tomorrow, but we wanted to be sure that there was hand sanitizer in every room, at least in the high school when staff reported. And as I mentioned earlier, Will DeJesus is, to his credit, making sure that there is hand sanitizer in every room. So, that's important, and we have to accept responsibility to make sure that those things are in place. And, as the superintendent, I'll accept full responsibility for that.
Mr. Collins, I just wanted to go back to the nurses. Regularly, in the payment of bills, the school district contracts out with a nursing staffing company. And so we have access to a staffing company to help us when nurses aren't available, our own nurses. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. In tonight's payment of bills, there was actually invoices for the staffing company as well. So just want to let you know the district has a backup plan to get additional nurses into the buildings if someone calls in sick or whatever it may be. That was it. Okay, if anyone else has any other questions, go ahead, Mrs. Waters.
For Mrs. Duncanson, with the news that we heard around North Providence and the notification of a student that had COVID and the school wasn't notified, when we had talked in a previous meeting about the system in place, you had mentioned a dashboard, a system in place to be notified when students have tested positive. Can you provide some clarification on that, an incident like that wouldn't happen in Cumberland, or if that notification process is working properly, or any insight you have for that?
Sure. So I'm sure North Providence has the same dashboard because it's set up through the Department of Health. So we have set up dashboards for each school. I additionally have a district dashboard that I operate for staffing. I can input students as well, though. So they have my contact information through that. Today I was on a webinar regarding contact tracing and investigations in schools that the Department of Health put on. And the individual running it, I don't have her name on the tip of my tongue, but she is I think the lead investigator for the Department of Health. She put her email in the chat and said that she was struggling in some districts to get correct cell phone numbers and email addresses for the staff. I emailed her directly and gave her Mr. Mitchell's email, cell phone and email, Mr. Damana's cell phone and email, and my own cell phone and email. So if she does need to contact somebody from the district on a quote Saturday night, which was what her example was, we would, if she called one of those three, I'm sure one of us will answer, because it does come up Department of Health on the caller ID. So I did do that today, as well as I think our contact information is up to date with RIDE. And they have access to all those records.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay.
I do have another question about the rooms and the status of the rooms. So I know that, Mr. Mitchell, you had said that the rooms are ready for the students. Can you just provide some how the process went as far as, fixing the rooms, and then the rooms were retested, and the last information we had gotten, I believe, was on October 2nd regarding the percent of rooms that were had met the criteria. And just curious, what's the status of it today, especially since we're bringing students in now, and what the status of the HEPA filters are as far as how many are in classrooms, and are there classrooms that are still pending the HEPA filters?
There are, to answer your question about HEPA filters, HEPA filters have been distributed to the exact location. I don't know at this particular point, but the information that we have for classrooms that don't have the 4 to 6 air exchanges, there are HEPA filters going in those rooms. And I know that Will has been distributing them accordingly. I can tell you regarding your question, there is, we have been updated, I think today. The technicians actually load information onto a spreadsheet for us so that we know exactly where the air exchange is for every single room. I can tell you that there has been improvement, and let me just give you an example of one of the things that that is taking place and will hopefully be completed this weekend while students are not in the buildings. At both BF Norton and Cumberland Hill, there is an issue with coils in the univents in those buildings. So we have actually hired Arden, which is the company that the state is using and recommending to support this sort of work. So Arden, I believe I'm 99% sure that it's Arden is actually going to be in finishing up, I think, BF Norton first, and then they'll be finishing up Cumberland Hill. They're cleaning the coils, and cleaning the coils has a significant impact on air exchange. So we experimented with a few rooms initially to be sure that this was an undertaking, an expense that we wanted to take on as a school department. And because there was improvement, we felt that it was the right thing to do. So those are the kinds of things that are happening now. And as you mentioned, one of the things that will take place very soon is an assessment of every single room to make sure that the 4 to 6 air exchanges are taking place. And in those places where there is not 4 to 6 air exchanges, we're going to put a HEPA filter in. Is there a possibility that we may need more? I don't know that we're going to need a significant number of the HEPA filters, but if we need them, certainly we will be in touch with the school committee to get those done. And while the weather is still relatively warm, one of the things that we can do to be absolutely positively sure until we get everything straightened out to satisfaction is to, open the window. All we need to do is open a window in a classroom or office 6 inches, and that will provide the air exchange that we need. And there may be, and I shared this in my video with staff, that there may be instances where, we might have, not indefinitely, but while we have a window open 6 inches, there may be a situation where, unfortunately, the heat has to be on as well under the circumstances, but that will just be a temporary issue. So I don't know if I answered your questions, but there is a lot going on, and I've learned a lot about ventilation, and we're doing the right thing by spending all this time and effort and getting these spaces. It's not just classrooms, it's all spaces to where they need to be. And if we can't get them where they need to be, that's where the HEPA filters will come in.
Okay, and again, I would ask to have access to that spreadsheet. I think it's important for the school committee to have that information as it's being developed.
Will do.
Thank you.
Mr. Fiorello?
Yeah, I just have a quick question about substitutes. I know we had talked about the need that we're going to have for substitutes. Do we have any idea how many substitutes across the district or per building that we have signed up already, or plans to get more?
Yep. So we're about like 80% staffed with our building subs that you all approved. We were down pretty low pretty recently, but thanks to my staff and their efforts, those numbers have creeped back up. Unfortunately, we are seeing, people requesting leaves now, so some of those building-based subs are getting eaten up almost immediately. But so we have filled, I don't want to say all, but a lot of those positions, and we've been pretty creative in doing that. We do have a substitute problem, and I'm not going to shy away from that. I think it's a statewide problem. We did sign up recently for a grant from the Rhode Island Department of Education. I think the governor announced it on Wednesday at her press conference regarding the Highlander Institute and their training of substitutes. We had to pledge to utilize those substitutes, which I will pledge to use any substitute that is qualified and passes a background check and is a decent person. I will pledge to use any sub that comes to us. I encourage anybody who out there who wants to sub, even if it's for a couple days a week, to call my office and submit an application. We are recruiting every single day for substitutes in the district. We are trying very hard to designate those subs to one building so that there is no cross contamination. And we are, with the hybrid, what we've been trying to do is accommodate parents who are home due to hybrid learning. And so parents who have students in school on like Tuesdays and Thursdays, they can, and they don't have to be home. Therefore, on those days, we have given them priority to those days in one school so they can still take care of their distance learning piece on the off days.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no one else saying they're raising their hand, we'll move on to payment of bills. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, tonight, Mr. Chair, fiscal management met at 5:30. Payment of bills was passed 3-0 in the amount of $704,957.39. And I would like to make a motion.
Mr. Salvatore makes a motion for the payment of bills in the amount of $704,957.39. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bernardo. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Aye.
7-0. Thank you. Next is Fiscal Management Subcommittee update. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned, fiscal met. We did payment of bills, obviously, and also Mr. Prignato gave us an update on a couple of items. One of them is that all students going back to school are eligible for free lunch. This will be reimbursed by the federal government, and it'll actually be $1 more than what we charge for the lunch. But there could be a potential confusion here, and Mr. Brignano, feel free to jump in. It was told that come December or January, the free lunch for all students could end. But anyone who wants to apply for a free or reduced lunch needs to have that application in ahead of time, right, Mr. Brignano?
Yes. While they're getting free lunches now, I don't want them to think that they don't have to send in the normal application or participate in that normal process because they're receiving this free lunch through a waiver that's continuing because of the COVID pandemic. And so I just want people to make sure they get it in. So come January, if their child is eligible for free or reduced lunch, they'll still be able to get them. And that's actually, Mr. Salvatore, it's $1 more than we normally would be reimbursed by the government, not $1 more than we charge. We're not making any money on this.
Yeah, I apologize. I realized afterwards I worded that wrong. Thank you for the correction.
No problem.
No, Mr. Chair, Mr. Bano, we also approved a budget amendment increase of $1,345,642, which represents current budget was $73,202,77, an increase to $74,548,419. So that passed 3-0 as well. And then lastly, Mr. Chair, CTE tuition. It was budgeted for 10 students when we actually have 40 to 42 students. So that was an also increase within the budget that we had to allot for. If anyone has any questions, myself or Mr. Prignani answer them. If not, that's the update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is policy and procedure update. Mr. Fiorello.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Policy and procedures has not met. Also, again, due to the overburdened staff at central administration. We will be having a meeting on October 20th where we will be picking up a few different policies. One is a policy I wrote several months ago. It is a requirement under the bond renovation guidelines that we have from the state. It is a policy restricting the idling of motor vehicles. It's really just a very simple policy. That'll be on the agenda for the next time. Also, we will have a mask policy, which is actually going to be enforced anyways because Department of Health here in Rhode Island has determined that we need to have one. There had been discussion back and forth whether or not we could enforce one, but now that the guidelines have been set, we can definitely have one. We will have it in 2 weeks and we'll be able to vote on it. Also, I'm going to propose that we forego the usual 2 readings of a new policy, that we just go with 1 reading and the vote that same night just to get it done. That is allowed under our policy regarding the creation of policies. And I think this is a good opportunity to use that. Also, I don't know if you were aware of this, but Cumberland has deemed October Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I have been in contact with Sarah King from the mayor's office. She is working on some initiatives at the town level. And of course, the school system being a big part of all of this, we're reviewing some of our policies. The dating violence policy will be the policy that's going to get revised. And I've been working with Mrs. Duncanson on that, and also Miss King from the mayor's office. We'll have a revised edition on the 20th for everyone to see. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fiorello. Next is Achievement and Communications Subcommittee update. Mrs. Friedman.
The Achievement and Communications Subcommittee met on September 29th. We had a couple of topics. The first one was Mr. Damata introduced us to 2 new staff members for the district. One is a math professional development coach and a tier 3 math coordinator. This is funded from Title II grant money through the federal government. And the second position is the multi-language learner and tier 3 ELA coordinator. And that was a replacement to an existing position that we had. So those 2 positions are really focused on our neediest students around math and ELA, and will help work with teachers and students to ensure that they're getting what they need across the district. And then we also had a discussion around professional development and the challenges of kind of achievement related challenges due to the different learning models that we have in place. And we had some good discussion around that. And just looking at how can we continue to meet our standards and achievement standards while we're in this kind of mixed learning model between distance learning and hybrid learning. So, and then we talked about our next meeting, which is to be scheduled, but hopefully in the next 2 weeks. And we want to have that whole discussion was at the K-8 level. And now we want to have a similar discussion at the high school level around professional development, achievement related challenges, and how they're addressing some of the neediest students, but also just student achievement overall during this time. So that's it.
Right. Thank you. Next is District Health and Wellness Subcommittee update. Mrs. Bernardo.
Yep, this committee has not met at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is the first of 2 comments from the public. If you're a member of the public and like to address the school committee, please make yourself known. Mr. Chandler will explain how to do that. It is a 3-minute limit per the policy. You need to state your name and address for the record. And because the way the school committee agendas are set up, we will not be answering you, but we will do our very best after the meeting to get you an answer if you ask a question. So, Mr. Chandler, would you explain how to make themselves aware that they'd like to speak?
Sure. If anybody's on a computer, you can just raise your hand and we'll unmute you so you can ask a question. If you're on the phone, you can use *9. You can raise your hand and you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay.
At
So
this time, I don't see anybody with their hands up.
You don't see anyone at this time. Okay, we will move on. There are no comments from the public at this moment. We'll move on to new business, discussion and/or vote to approve the employment contract for the school facilities manager. Who's going to take this, Mr. Mitchell? Will you or Mrs. Duncanson?
I guess I can take this. Mr. Chairman, I am recommending the appointment of Will DeJesus as the school facilities manager. Interestingly enough, Will is working as we speak. He is a tireless, conscientious worker. We're really pleased with his knowledge and expertise and his reliability and his commitment to doing this important work during this challenging time. I could not recommend anyone more highly, and I would ask that the school committee approve his contract.
All right, anyone like to make a motion to approve the contract
Chair.
to Mr. DeJesus? Yes, Mr. Salvatore.
I would like to make a motion for approval. Also, I would like to mention this did pass in our fiscal management subcommittee 0. I forward on a motion for approval.
Mr. Salvatore makes a motion to approve the appointment of Will DeJesus Jr. as our facilities director. Do I have a second?
I have second for discussion.
Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to second this for discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Fiorello.
I just wanted to congratulate Will DeJesus on this position. He has worked, as Mr. Mitchell said, tirelessly over the last few years. And I think he's a good fit for our school system. He definitely cares about our buildings. And he's very, quite honestly, he's easy to get along with and he gets his work done. And I just have a question for Mr. Prignano. Does this officially end all connection to Sodexo facilities?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Excellent. I think the next thing we need to do to help Mr. DeJesus in his position is to hire an HVAC tech. But that's all for my second.
Mr. Fiorello, I forwarded the name to Mr. DeJesus for an HVAC tech. So it is higher than the superintendent's priority of people to get into the district. Anyone else have any discussion in regards to the appointment of Mr. DeJesus as the facilities director? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next
you.
is discussion and/or vote to approve the homeschool instruction request for the 2020-21 school year. We have 4 individuals who's requested renewal of their homeschool program. And we have the request for 3 new children to be approved for their homeschool programming. So I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Waters to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have
Aye.
it. Boy, 7-0. Next is discussing and the vote to approve resolutions. We have SCR 2020-06, 2021 school removal bid award contract. Mr. Salvatore, was that in fiscal tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was in fiscal, both resolutions, actually, the snow removal bid. And then also, as I mentioned, the amended budget, they both passed 3-0. And I would like to make a motion for the approval of the snow removal bid SCR 20.
All right, Mr. Salvatore makes a motion to approve the awarding of a contract for the 2021 school year to JD Snow Incorporated of Warwick, Rhode Island for snow removal in the district. It's an amount not to exceed $50,000. And this is, went out to bid and they were submitted to us for recommendation and approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Benau and Mr. Collins. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Next is SCR 2020-07 fiscal year 2020-2021 amended school budget. Mr. Salvatore?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was in fiscal and it did pass 3-0, and I recommend passage. So I would like to make that motion.
Mr. Salvatore makes a motion to
Second.
approve SCR 2020-07, a resolution authoring and empowering the Cumberland School Committee to amend the 2020-2021 budget of $73,202,000. Let's do this again. $73,202,777 to $74,548,419. Just for the public, we do this yearly. We adjust the budget when we get to after the town council approves the budget. And we've had some additional funding from the virus, COVID-19 and so forth. So we're just lining up our budget. That's exactly what the council has approved. So we have a second by, was it Mr. Collins that seconded? And Mr. Fiorello, you have a question on the discussion?
I do, for discussion. I just would like, because I was not at the fiscal meeting when this was being discussed, could Mr. Prignato maybe just give a couple quick highlights on revenue and expense changes?
Oh, we can ask him to do that. Mr. Prignato, are you prepared?
Yes, sure. Yeah, as you know, when we passed our budget back in June, I mentioned to the committee earlier with tonight that we basically passed a budget that was kind of based on what we would think a normal school year would be, as far as cleaning supplies and substitute line items and those sort of things. Well, the COVID-19 situation hasn't really improved. We're still in that situation, and I felt we needed to, at this point, amend our budget to line up with some of the spending that's going on, as far as with HEPA filters and cleaning supplies and things that weren't in the budget. As you recall, during the last few months, I've given out sheets kind of estimating where I thought the budget might grow to. Is that $1 million, $1.3 million? It's gone up about that $1.3 million. And we basically closed that gap by bringing up the number of children that are attending the CTE program. We had budgeted originally 10. We've got about 41. And so we've increased that revenue by about $450,000. And also all the technology in the budget, we are now offsetting with paying for with the master lease that we'll pay for over the next few years. I've talked with the mayor about it. He supports us on this. He's going to help me. We're going to see if we can do it through the town, as far as them at least issuing the lease, because they would get a tax exempt rate where we wouldn't. So that lease is about $518,000. We'll see next year whose books it will sit on as far as the repayment. I told the mayor that, the repayment of 120-something thousand a year, that we would for sure be asking for at least that amount from the council. So whether he gives it to us through that way and pays for the lease, or we pay for it, it won't be in any budget till next year. So that $518,450 gives us just about $1 million of that $1.3 million we talked about. And we added, some of the highlights. We added $150,000 in this budget for glycol at the high school. We feel that we should do that based on what we may be facing with dampers open and that type of stuff, and cold air on our univent pipes and that type of stuff that could possibly cause freeze ups. We've added $270,000 for additional substitutes. Hopefully hire, may be able to hire people, permanent subs. We added $158,000 for the high school security project. $138,000 for, this is where some of that $1 million went. $138,000 for the virtual learning licenses. $100,000 additional in maintenance equipment, another $100,000 in cleaning supplies because HEPA filters and cleaning supplies, those costs are adding up. So those are kind of the highlights of what we've added. We decreased a couple of line items. I've decreased the busing budget a little bit. I'm hoping that there'll be some savings there through our virtual Mondays. Unemployment, we don't really have that many people, if any, I don't really know right now, laid off because we've been forced to call so many people back that were on originally out, but have had to call back due to leave of absences. So those are kind of the highlights, Mark. If I hope that helps, or if you want to go into more detail, we can.
I just have a quick question about healthcare claims. How are they standing?
Sure.
Right now?
I haven't really tracked healthcare claims as much right now because with the new program we're in, WB Community, we pay like a premium. It's like a premium arrangement. It's like a hybrid plan, kind of like our school system right now. How we make out at the end of the year will determine what happens next year with rates. Just like a premium plan. But however, if we were to have a good year, the money would come back to us rather than going to the health, Blue Cross. So early in the year to really be looking at that right now, when all I know is we pay the same flat amount each month at this point. Plus, we added some money for that because that was $240,000 short from what we originally budgeted by going into that plan.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Mrs. Waters?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Mr. Prignano, you had mentioned that we don't have anybody laid off. We still do have guidance counselors laid off.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we have a amended budget, SCR 2020-07 from $73,202,777 to $74,548,419. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next is comments from the public. If you're in the public and would like to address the school committee, you can at this time. There is a 3-minute time limit. Please state your name and address for the record. And we can't answer your questions because of the way the agendas are made up, but we will do our best to get you an answer after the meeting. So, Mr. Chandler, would you explain to the public once again how to unmute themselves and make themselves known?
Yep. So you can use *9 to raise your hand. If you're on the phone or if you're on your computer, you can just raise your hand and we can unmute you. We do have somebody currently with their hand raised, Carrie Smith.
Hello, Carrie. Can you hear us?
I can. Thank you very much. Carrie Smith, 133 Bear Hill Road. I just have a question on the homeschooling. I'm just wondering, do we have the numbers from previous years to this year of how many more students are homeschooling? It seems that quite a bit have requested that this year. And I'm just wondering how that impacts us.
I'm sure all that comes through the assistant superintendent's office, Carrie. And
Okay,
I'm sure
I'll email.
that we can get you that number because it does change. Every month we have a meeting, but we'll have them reach out to you with that number.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeMonica.
Okay. Anyone else, Mr. Chandler?
Not at this time.
Okay, we will move forward then. We'll end comments from the public. Next is school committee comments, school liaison reports. Anyone here have a comment? Liaison report. Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
Just want to say school's opened. It's very exciting. But in talking to teachers and in my own job, the spring was tough, but the last month has been exhausting for teachers and the real work hasn't even begun yet. So, I talked a little bit tonight about nurses, but we've talked about teachers in the past, and also administration. The mountains they've had to move to get to the point where we are, and all hands on deck, facilities people and everybody, the patience the parents have exhibited, for the most part, has been exceptional. So we're here, and it's kind of uncharted territory. The future is kind of hazy, but we've gotten to this point. My own daughter did her orientation today. She was delighted. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and I know if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Cumberland Public Schools. So good luck to everybody, and thank you for all you've done so far.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have a comment, liaison report? Hearing none, I would just like to say from the superintendent all the way down, it's been a lot of hard work going forward. The trouble we've put you through and the parents in regards to this closing the schools was doing it right, getting this air ventilation system working properly, as the mayor said in the Valley Breeze today. It's not like we didn't have a plan to address the univents in the school district. It's just that COVID came a year too early in regards to this. We're in a better position because we don't have to open our windows if everything goes well for a classroom to get the 4 to 6 air exchanges that the governor wants us to have. And we'll be able to do it without opening windows. And that's a big deal, considering the other school districts are behind the 8 ball. And that goes back to, the business office, the superintendent, and Mr. DeJesus and others, moving forward with this E&E report. And I think we would all be remiss without saying thank you for the hard work being done. And then on the curriculum side with the principals and Mr. DeMona's office as well. So, school open today. Tomorrow's another group coming in. And then next week we move forward with the AB, and, we hope it all runs smoothly for everyone and we get a quality education out of this moving forward. So one final thing is, for those in the public that are listening, in District 4 for the Cumberland School Committee, there is an opening. No one has put their name in to run for office. So if you would like to, or feel you would like to join the Cumberland School Committee, you would have to do it as a write-in campaign on the day of election at the polling places. And we really would like to have someone elected to the position. Otherwise, it would fall to the town council to appoint a person to the school committee for the 4-year term. And I know Mr. Salvatore is here. And when he first ran for office, it was an appointed, he ran as a write-in. Mr. Collins ran as an appointee. And when Mr. Hess moved to Florida, and it's worked out well, people that want to be on the school committee. And so if you think you have an inkling and you want to join, you don't have much time left. Mrs. Waters?
Yeah, I would just like to say I'm pretty sure she's made this public, but Amy Rogalski would like to have her name written in as the District 4 candidate. So.
Well, that's great. So, let's get the something in the Valley Breeze if you can reach out to them, and let's get something out there so people, will know we have someone that wants to run for office. Anyone else?
Or you could just write Heidi's name in again.
No, thanks. Did I say that out loud?
Mr. Hess. All right. So with that being said, Mr. Mitchell, do we have anything to go back into executive session for?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mrs. Waters to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Thank you.